Happy Wednesday, everybody. It's Jim, it's Amadeus, and, some fun stuff. Amadeus, I know Wednesday's usually a soccer day. What's going on today on the world of soccer?
Yeah, we got the continued Champions League slate. We touched on it a bit yesterday. So Real Madrid ended up beating Red Bull Leipzig away from home 1-0. So they have a 1-0 lead on aggregate going into that second leg back in Spain, and then in the other matchup, Man City had beat Copenhagen 3-1. They scored a late third goal in the uh, stoppage time, so they won that game 3-1. They'll be taking a 3-1 lead on aggregate into their second leg back at home, so that should be just more of a coast match for them. And then at 3 o'clock today, we got two big matchups for the first leg. We got Lazio against Bayern Munich, so Bayern Munich in Lazio, and Real Sociedad is visiting Mbappe at PSG today. So definitely
Ah, okay.
some exciting matchups, and definitely, yeah, the both of those are going to be good. Lazio obviously
hmm
is a very good team, and they're at home, so don't think Bayern Munich's just going to walk all over them. And same with PSG, even though they're at home, Real Sociedad's a very good defensive team. So you know, watch out for that defensive setup. They could give PSG some trouble today. So definitely make sure you catch those at 3 o'clock.
There you go. And I have a feeling later in the show we'll get to the point where people, if they go down, and you can do it right now, folks, go watch us and go down into the show box, and it'd be a great opportunity to get some early info on some of those matches. I assume you've got one or two of them on your docket today.
Yeah, I got to play on both games, and I'm
hmm
coming off a win yesterday. My only play was Man City -1.5, and they cashed that with that late third goal. So
There you
definitely, I
go.
mean, like I said, the game started at 3, so go check them out, get your plays in now.
hmm
You never want to rush in the last 5-10 minutes to go place a bet before a game starts.
And so you can continue to listen to us as you go ahead and do it. So multitasking, folks, multitasking. So there you go. All right, man. The All-Star break is coming up this week in the NBA. We already know that we'll watch the three-point, shootout on Saturday, and pretty much that's all we're going to watch. But anyway, let's talk about some of the players who seem to be players and teams that seem to be doing well heading into the break, and let's kind of prognosticate out what happens after the break. Um, Kyrie Irving in Dallas has been really playing some good basketball as of late.
Yeah, he's a guy who's been dealing with injuries all season. He's
hmm
been in and out of the lineup. I think really the story down there in Dallas is Luka Doncic putting the team on his back night after night. But absolutely, when Kyrie plays, I mean, this is a dangerous Mavericks team. They're only 31-23 in seventh place. But like I said, they've dealt with a lot of injuries this year, so they can be a very scary team when they're healthy, and that's what you're starting to see now.
Absolutely, and just when you write them off, here they come back. Golden State 4-0 this week. They have not lost this week.
Yeah, who would have thought it took a very unfortunate thing to happen to their assistant coach,
hmm
and that really, I mean, there's no other way to put it. It really lit a fire under their ass, and they're going out there playing with heart in every single game for their assistant coach, who unfortunately passed away. And yeah, the Golden State Warriors, as bad as they've been all season, this is a hot team right now. They're clicking, and they're not just winning tight games; they're destroying teams in games. So absolutely, I think this is a team you don't want to step in front of, and they're a short favorite at home tonight against the Clippers. The Clippers are going to be missing Kawhi Leonard. I would lay the 3 with the Warriors. I think they can cover that spread tonight.
That's a good one. That's a good deal. Let's talk about. We'll go through the top the power rankings for the NBA teams. We'll go through the top 5 or 10. It should be no surprise to anybody that the boys in green that play in Boston are in first place on the power rankings. That'd be the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue. The Celtics have the best record in the NBA. They've been leading the NBA for most of the season. They're the only team with 40 plus wins in the league right now, and they only have 12 losses, which is, actually, I'm looking here. It's 4. They have 4 less losses than the next team behind them. So absolutely, this is a great team. They've struggled in some spots against some of the better teams in the league. So obviously, the games don't get played on paper. We'll see what this team does in the playoffs. But yeah, if this is if they don't make it to the finals this year, then I have to take it as a failure of a season for the Celtics. I don't know what more they can do. I mean, they have the team, and if they don't go this year, then something's up in Boston.
Here's a team we're talking about, the Golden State being kind of pedestrian this year, but maybe they're getting hot at the right time. The Clippers are the number 2 team on the power rankings, which would put them as the number 1 team in the West. I don't know that that's true, but I know that they're certainly playing well.
Yeah, so the Clippers were definitely on a roll up until this last week. They've kind of died down a bit going into the break. They haven't played well in their last few games. They just got blown out at home by the Timberwolves in their last one, I think. And obviously, they play the Red Hot Warriors tonight in their last game before the All-Star break with no Kawhi. So we'll see how they come out. But I agree with you, or I agree with that in the sense where this is a very good team. I wouldn't put them at number 2. I don't think they're the best team in the Western Conference. I think that title actually belongs to the Minnesota Timberwolves. But the Clippers are definitely good. They've shown these last few weeks getting hot that they can definitely compete with the best in the NBA. But yeah, just the way they've played, they're a streaky team. That's the thing, is they got hot over the last few weeks. Now they're cold again. Yeah, just I would like to see a little more consistency from the Clippers.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. Number 3 on the list is the Cleveland Cavaliers, 35-16, and they're making a push. They're starting to look pretty solid out there. They've won 17 of the last 18 games. And the one loss was to Milwaukee in overtime. So they certainly have afforded themselves pretty well, at least in the last month or so.
Yeah, again, Cavaliers, another team that's been very hot over the last few weeks, and really they've been a mediocre team up until January, and they've gone on this run now that's propelled them into second place of the Eastern Conference. I thought they were actually underperforming for most of the season, so this is nothing less than what I expect from the Cavaliers. They were also dealing with some injuries, obviously. Darius Garland and a few others missed some time early in the season. Now they're all healthy. They got Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. Everybody's back in the lineup for them, and you're seeing the results. Obviously, now I don't know if I would call this team number 3. Just because right now, this power rankings, you're telling me it's got 2 Eastern teams in the top 3, and I would disagree with that statement. I think the Western Conference is a much stronger conference, and the Cavaliers are a very good team, and they might well be the second best team in the Eastern Conference right now, but they're not the third best team in the NBA. Like I said, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are probably the best team in the Western Conference right now. I think you could even put the Clippers ahead of the Cavaliers. Definitely the Oklahoma City Thunder are a much better team than the Cavaliers right now. So I definitely think, no shade on them. They're a fantastic team in the East. I weight the Western Conference a little more because, obviously the Western teams are going to see more Western teams on their schedule, and the conference is a lot stronger. So you got to take that into account. In the Western Conference, we have 4 teams that are pretty much tied between 38-16 and 36-18 between the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Thunder, and the Timberwolves. And you got to remember, these teams have been playing each other too. So this is, I think, the Western Conference by far is the stronger conference this season.
I wouldn't disagree. Speaking of, just like you said, the Denver Nuggets, they have at number 4 in the power rankings. Denver, I thought, was going to make a trade at the deadline, but they didn't. They stood pat, and I would have liked to have seen them get some, bench help, because that's been a problem for them. But they haven't had too many problems in Denver this year.
Yeah, the defending champions, got to give them respect. Obviously, they're 4th in the Western Conference right now. But like I said, they're 4th in the West, but at 36-18, because there's four teams with that same record, right? Like, for example, the Cavs are 35-17, and they're 2nd in the Eastern Conference. So this is what I mean is there's 4 teams between the Celtics and the Cavaliers in the overall NBA standings. So, and frankly, I think these power rankings have it a bit wrong, because the Nuggets, not only are they in 4th right now, but for most of the season, they've been in 3rd in the Northwest Division behind the Thunder and the Timberwolves. So definitely, obviously, you got to give respect to the defending champions. But as you said, they're lacking a bit of depth, which is something they didn't go out and get for by the trade deadline. And they've been outperformed by the Thunder and the Timberwolves all season. So at this point in time, I would have to put the Thunder and the Timberwolves higher than the Nuggets.
Which is weird, because the NBA folks who put out the power rankings have Minnesota behind them. I don't see that. I mean, if they started playing the playoffs today, I don't see how Minnesota isn't a better team than the Nuggets.
Yeah, like I said, the Timberwolves, I think, are the best team in the Western Conference right now. They have the best record at 38-16 currently. Now, obviously, that could change with, how competitive it is in the top 4 there. But I think what we're seeing with the Timberwolves is this is a team that was supposed to perform like this last year and wasn't this good, because they needed that time after making all those trades. When the Jazz fell apart, they went and got Gobert and Conley, and obviously they made they traded away D'Angelo Russell and all these things. So there was big changes in that lineup, and we expected to see great things. We didn't quite see great things last year, but I think near the end of the season is when really, if you look at the end of the regular season last year, the Timberwolves were really starting to excel. And they had that little stint going into the playoffs. I believe it was actually the Nuggets, so the NBA champions, who ended up kicking them out in the first round. But this year, I think that the Timberwolves have finally come, full circle. This is the year. They were supposed to be good last year and weren't, but I think they definitely improved towards the end of the season. And this is the year now. This is their year where I think they're here, and definitely one of the best teams in the NBA.
Let's look at the Timberwolves. Now, there's a stat that the Timberwolves, we were talking just a minute ago about Denver not making a trade, not, bolstering the bench. One of the stats which coaches look at and pay attention to, and it's not an overly reported one, is, how many people are in your rotation, meaning, for those who are unaware, what it means is simply this. On an average, how many players do you play during the course of a game? The Timberwolves have the highest ranking of players playing in the game in their rotation, and that's 10. So you got 10 guys that Minnesota is, really happy to have in that rotation. And maybe one guy gets in for 2 or 3 minutes at a time. Maybe it's almost like, shifts in the NHL. But the point being that they've got guys who they can trust, while, 1 or 2 of their top stars, has to take a breather.
Yeah, definitely, and that's a big thing for playoffs, right? That's the depth of the team, and it goes to show you how deep this team really is. I'll just give you an example, right? They got a few guys here: Nikhil Alexander Walker, Naz Reid, who's a phenomenal player, Kyle Anderson, Monty Morris. These are guys that are on their bench. You know, Monty Morris was a starter in the NBA last season. So these are things, you know, not Naz Reid, I believe they got him from the Pelicans. I believe he was playing bench for the Pelicans earlier this season. So yeah, their depth is unreal. And if you look, you know, those four players, three of those four players I just mentioned played over 20 minutes in their last game. So absolutely, the depth is a big reason why the Timberwolves are good. I think their starting lineup in general is a big reason why they're a good team, and obviously the coach Chris Finch. You know, not a lot of coaches in the league after your star player, or at least one of your star players, has a 60-point game. Not a lot of coaches in the league would go and tell you to your face, you know, that was a disgusting performance. You played absolutely no defense. I'd never want to see that again from you. So full respect to Chris Finch. You know how I love my defense, and
That's
and
right.
really, look, it matters in the NBA too. Like look at the good teams in the NBA. They all average around 110 points allowed per game compared to the
Mm-hmm.
teams that average 120. And you know, people were wondering why the Milwaukee Bucks fired their head coach after such a great start to the season. And look, the record is great, but it's not going to matter once we get to the playoffs. That record gets them
Right.
what, maybe the second, third seed in the East, and then when it comes to playoffs, you're going to lose to the team because the Bucks are averaging over 120 points allowed per game. Now, they haven't been winning under Doc Rivers, but the defense has been getting better. So
Mm-hmm.
take that as you will. But that's just an example of how, you know, the Bucks recognized they were going to have a problem. You know, it means nothing that we're second in the East right now. When we get to the playoffs, if we have to run into the Celtics, that their defense is going to crush us. And we've seen it a few times with defensive teams. We've also seen the Bucks get beat by offensive teams. They lost to the Pacers 4 times this season. So and the Pacers are a team that at the beginning of the season I think they still average the most points scored per game as of right now. I think it's around 124 points per game. But yeah, they had a huge overtrend to start the season. They were scoring 130, 140 points in every game almost, it felt like. And that just goes to show, you know, they can't beat the defensive teams, and you can't even beat the offensive team. So what identity do you have? So a lot of people didn't like the firing. I think I'm more questioning the hiring of Doc Rivers. I mean, I was completely fine with the firing of Adrian Griffin, but absolutely, you know, just the whole point. I know we weren't talking about the Bucks, but my whole point using the Bucks as the example was defense matters in the NBA, and I respect Chris Finch for, you know, telling Karl Anthony Towns to his face, you scored 60 points, but you played no defense, and that was disgusting. I want to see better defense. So and that's part of the reason why if the Timberwolves go deep, you know, it's all of that. It's the bench depth, the talent in the starting lineup, and the obviously the brains of the head coach. So definitely you have a full team firing on all cylinders here, and it's a big reason why I think the Timberwolves are the number 1 team in the Western Conference.
Well, and here comes another Western Conference team you mentioned earlier, Oklahoma City, the Thunder, are number 6. The one thing about the Thunder, and I thought this was going to happen in the trade deadline, but it didn't seem they didn't pull it off. They need bigs up front. They're not a particularly good rebounding team, and you know, to your point about defense, if you can't control the boards, you know, in the playoffs, then you're not going to be there long.
Yeah, definitely. You know, Chet Holmgren is their rebound guy, and that's another big reason why they've improved this year, actually, because, you know, obviously they were lacking that last year. He wasn't available. He was out the whole season. And now you see him in the lineup. You see all the young players. That's the thing with the Thunders. They're a very young team. And this is a team that they've been on the come up the last 3 years. They've had the best against the spread record in the NBA over the last 3 seasons, or one of the best. I'm not sure if they have the exact best, but they've been overperforming the spread for the last 3 seasons now. And every year we've seen improvement from this team. Just 3 years ago, you know, they were one of those teams that was barely winning 20 games in the season. And slowly we saw them win more games than last year. You know, we saw them hit that 500 mark and make it into the play-in tournament. They didn't obviously have a good playoff run, but now they've dominated the entire regular season. They've shown the consistency because they've kept. Not only are they number 3 in the NBA right now for Western Conference, or sorry, number 2. They have the second best record in the Western Conference at the moment. This is a team that has maintained that spot for most of the season. So they're showing the consistency. A lot of people are talking about, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the MVP conversation. And obviously,
Right.
I think Chet Holmgren and just all the young players, right? They've gained experience over the last few years. Lou Dort, Josh Giddey, and this team is finally here. The Thunder. Personally, again, as I said, I would put them a little higher than the Nuggets, them and the Timberwolves, but I think the teams are quite even. They roughly have the same record and have for most of the season. They've been neck and neck, but I would say the Thunder are slightly better this season.
Yeah. And now it's 7. The West continues to dominate. And this is the Dallas Mavericks. You talked about them a little earlier, that the Mavs are starting to find themselves.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen the Mavericks a lot in the top 10 for power rankings, and I totally agree. As I said before, they're definitely starting to find the rhythm now that they're healthy and Kyrie's consistently in the lineup. But I wouldn't put them at number 7. I think people are very high on the Mavericks this year. And frankly, I think there's better teams in the West than them right now. Like one team, the Mavericks. For most of the season, I've seen the Mavericks always ranked higher than the Pelicans. The Pelicans are the team in their own division who are actually beating them. The Pelicans have been a very good team, and they're dangerous when they're healthy. So I would put the Pelicans a little higher than the Mavericks. I think they're a better team. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Suns right now. The Suns have they had a rough start to the season. Yes, they were dealing with injuries. It felt like Bradley Beal was never going to play his first game in a Suns uniform. And then after he did play his first game, it felt like he was never going to play a second game. And then when he finally came back, you had Durant and Booker both dealing with injuries. But the last month, they've been like the Clippers. They've been one of the hottest teams in the NBA. I believe they've won something like 15 of their last 18 or something along those lines. They've ripped off quite a few long runs now. They had a 9-game win streak, and I think again they had like another 4-game win streak before losing last week. But this is a very good Suns team. I think they're similar to the Mavericks. I think they've figured it out now. The big thing for them was they weren't healthy at the beginning of the season. Now they're healthy. But also when they were healthy, ended December, started January, they're still trying to figure out the lineup with those 3 stars, obviously Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. Anytime you acquire a new star like Bradley Beal, and especially, considering he's going to be the point guard, they got to learn how to play with each other. And that's what I think you're seeing now. Everybody has figured out and understood what their role is on the team. And this is why you're seeing the Suns go on a big run. And frankly, I don't think the Suns are going to stop going on a big run. I think they might lose a game here and there and then continue to win, 5 or 6 in a row at a time as they look to make up ground for that bad start they had.
Their number 9 team is a team about. We finally returned to the East. I don't know. I'm not buying the Knicks. I'm sorry. They're consistently inconsistent. Now they did do well at the trade deadline, but I don't know. I'm not sold on the Knicks. Am I wrong in this saying, or is it the jury's still out on these guys?
You're not wrong, Jim, just because it's been a very short sample size, but I'm buying into the Knicks. And
okay,
just because it's hard to argue with the results since making the trade. I was somebody where when the trade happened, personally, I'm actually more of a Knicks fan than I am a Raptors fan, and I thought the Raptors fleeced the Knicks in that trade. But I had a few people tell me that OG Anunoby was going to fit very well in that system that the Knicks are running there with Tom Thibodeau, and sure enough, he's done nothing but fit well. And it's not just Anunoby; they went and they've picked up a few depth positions as well.
Yeah.
And they went on that huge run. So they've shown me nothing, and they've surged up to now fourth in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, Tom Thibodeau is a big defensive guy, which I
Right.
respect. So I'm always going to weight that a little more. And yeah, just I'm with you. I don't know if I'm fully sold on the Knicks, but I haven't seen anything since the trades they made that have really said to me, this team got worse. If anything, I've seen the improvement in the team. And I know they're in a bit of a lull their last 3 games. I believe they've lost their last 3 straight now, but they were missing Brunson in one of those games. They've been missing Julius Randle for a few weeks now. They've been missing, Mitchell Robinson. So I think as long as the Knicks can continue to win games and stay afloat, because they have themselves in a very good position to get a high seed going into the playoffs, if they can just, stay afloat until they start getting some of these guys back near the end of the season and get even more healthier, I think the Knicks could be a little dangerous going into the playoffs. We saw them be a little dangerous last year when they kicked the Knicks out.
Absolutely. We finish out the top 10 with 2 more Western teams. You have had glowing things to say about the Phoenix Suns, and they're in the number 9 spot. And then we venture off to Milwaukee because they're in the number 10 spot. So there's your top 10. Phoenix, who you spoke of, and certainly the Bucks at this point.
Yeah, there's never any respect for the Pelicans. I think the Pelicans are a top 10. I would put them at 10 personally. The Bucks, the Bucks are good, but they destroyed themselves by picking up Damian Lillard. He plays. They traded away the best defensive player pretty much, and they got nothing in return defensively in that trade. And it's hurt them. It really has hurt them. Obviously, Lillard is a guy that kind of like plays at his own speed too. So it's tough for me to call the Bucks a top 10 team. I know they have one of the best records in the NBA, but like I said, look at some of their losses. They lost 4 times to the Pacers. Very fast-paced, high-scoring team that was able to outscore the Bucks, and they lose their games against the more defensive teams. I know they just blew out the Nuggets but that game was at home. I think when the Bucks are not at home, they're a very vulnerable team, and they definitely need to fix their defense before I can consider them a real contender. And frankly, they have a losing record with Doc Rivers since hiring him, and Vegas seems to think that was a bad hire just because their odds after they fired Adrian Griffin, they were something like plus 500 to win the NBA championship. And then after the news came out that they were hiring Doc Rivers, the odds actually got worse. They went to plus 525. So the books looked at it more of a downgrade, more hurting the team than improving the team by hiring Doc Rivers. Like I said, the defense has definitely improved under him, but they're not winning games. So, take that as you will. It's hard to see. And I love how the 76ers have just completely fallen off the map. They're nothing without Embiid, I guess. But
yeah,
I know they're trying to scramble to sign some guys now. I think even Tobias Harris is out for their game tonight. So that's a little brutal. Yeah, it's unfortunate what's happened with the 76ers because they've been one of the best teams in the East all year, and now obviously you've seen them slide from 2nd to 5th in the last few months, and it is what it is, right? It's an unfortunate situation for the 76ers, but if I were them, I would definitely get that fine back from the NBA because that was a bit of a joke, but yeah.
So now we have the All-Star break. and these guys will, have some time off. When they return, is there somebody who you think in that second tier, not the top tier, has a chance to like move on up, and your Pelicans might be that team.
Yeah, if you want to call them in the second tier, see the Pelicans they're above the Mavericks in the standings, so
Okay.
they're in a good in a good position right now. I would say I think the Warriors are a team. They obviously they're very hot going into the break,
Right.
and usually that's not a good thing because those teams tend to come out cold. This obviously we've talked many times why I don't like the All Star break and what it does to momentum in the league, but the Warriors are obviously they're playing they're playing more than a game right now. They're playing with obviously that very unfortunate situation that happened to them. They had an assistant coach pass away, and it's just they're playing like a team possessed. So I think if anything, they're a team that could come out hot. I don't think the All Star break will affect their momentum too much because I think they're playing with the mindset of this is bigger than us. This is bigger than basketball. We're playing for. Sorry if I botch his name, Milojevic, or I believe it was, or
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it as best I can, but they're playing for him right now, and that's the thing. They're rallying around his death. That's what we're seeing with this Warriors team, and I think that's a very powerful thing. That the All Star, even the All Star break, won't break that kind of momentum. I think that the Warriors, and right now they're in 10th, so they're in a spot to get into that
Mm-hmm.
play-in tournament. But I think they could maybe sneak into 6th. They're not that far behind the Pelicans in 6th place. So they're a team I think is going to go on a run. I think the Suns are going to continue to go on a run, even though they're not really a lower half team.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Heat, I mean, the Heat were starting to heat up. They're another team that's been so banged up with
Mm-hmm.
Butler in and out of the lineup. If anything, actually, you know what? I'll say for the Eastern side, I think the Magic. Now that the Magic, they've dealt with some injuries this year, but they've been a very good home team, and they're kind of like a mini Thunder in my eyes. I know the Thunder are a very good team in the NBA this season, but I look at the Magic like they're the Thunder of last year because the Magic and the Thunder were hand in hand the last few years as one of the worst teams in the NBA, and the Magic have done a very similar thing to the Thunder where they've drafted high and drafted a lot of young kids. These young kids have had a few years now gaining that experience in the NBA. Now they got their star with Paulo Banchero, and I think that this Magic team is just coming together. I think they might be like the Thunder were last year, where they're not a great team, but they're good enough to get in the play-in tournament type thing. So I think the Magic are going to use this break because they've been banged up. They're healthy now, and they just recently got healthy. So I think they're going to use this break as a chance, really rest up, and I think they could come out hot of the All-Star break for sure.
There you go. Now you just mentioned the Magic. The Magic this week did something which is pretty cool. They retired their first number. And you would think, well, gosh, there's 35 years, perhaps they could have found somebody. Shaquille O'Neal was the first to have his number retired as a Orlando Magic.
Yeah, I did see that. So I'm shocked they had retired a number before, but good on them, good on Shaq.
I feel kind of bad for Penny Hardaway because he and Shaq were there together and had some pretty good years.
Well, maybe he's coming next. They just need another 5
Maybe,
years.
yeah.
Number 2 in there, right?
All right, here's a trivia question for everybody out there. Since we're talking about retired numbers, there are 3 NBA players who have their numbers retired by 3 or more teams. care to guess who they might be?
By 3 or more teams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't.
Okay. All right, I'll give you one, and whenever you get it, you'll probably go, okay, I should have known that one. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay.
That's one of them. Now, in fairness, let's put a little hook on this one. Might help. A guy got his number retired posthumously for a team he didn't even play for.
Why though?
Well, this is a bit crazy, but it is what it is. And that was Pete Maravich.
Okay.
Maravich's the number that was retired was retired by the Utah Jazz. He never played for the Utah Jazz. He played for the Jazz in New Orleans, but he didn't play for the Utah Jazz, and he played for the Boston Celtics. So his numbers were retired, but he never physically played in Utah for the Jazz. So there's Maravich, there's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and the other one's kind of an easy one, to be honest. It's a player who's still playing, which usually you don't see, but it happens sometimes, especially when you are this guy. And this is a layup for you.
Is it LeBron James?
Yes, sir.
See. Why are we retiring numbers before we're done playing?
I don't know. And he only played what? How many? I mean, he only played like 3 or 4 years in Miami, and he got that one.
Oh, I guess he got a championship there, right?
I'm sorry.
He won a championship there, right? So
yeah, and then
Kawhi Leonard was in Toronto 1 year, and he's forever cemented in the legacy of the Raptors. So,
that's okay. That's
there
all right.
You go, right? You win a championship, it's all you need is one year.
Yeah, I mean, you never know when you're coming back, so take it. So Cleveland also retired his number, and very recently, and this is mind-boggling. The Lakers announced that they're going to retire. When he decides to retire, he will get his number, placed in Laker history. I don't get it. That one I don't like because this was his best days were not played in a Laker uniform.
Yeah, I would agree with that. By now he moved to LA to focus on his post NBA career.
Right. Yeah.
So personally, I think it's weird that we're retiring his number before he's even retired, especially if he was the one who made those comments about like, why do we have to be retired to get into the Hall of Fame? Like, what are you afraid of? You're never going to stop playing? Stop playing the game then, okay? Like, honestly. So
I was hoping. Yeah. I thought perhaps he was going to say that he was going to still be playing not just when Bronny was in the league, but when Bronny's son was in the league, so he could be the first, player to be on the same court with his son and his grandson.
I would believe it. That's the sad thing is I'd believe it if it happened, but
you got to know when to stop. And it's not like LeBron is doing this now for the money. I mean, he's clearly in his head in post NBA mode. He's playing games, yes, but not at the level that he was when he was 5 years ago.
Weeks ago, he was talking about starting to stream video games. Like, what? Okay, you want to be a streamer? Then stop playing NBA. Like, you have to be committed to one or the other. I'm sure if you want to go and be a streamer after you retire, people will watch you play 2K or whatever game it doesn't even have to be a sports game. I know a lot of these athletes like to play Madden and stuff like that, but hell, maybe he just wants to go play Minecraft. Go ahead. but I'm sure you'll get plenty of viewers, and there's plenty of people that want to hear you talk. But you can't be saying these things while still playing, and then talking about why isn't my number retired? So like, come on, please, just one step at a time, LeBron. One step at a time. 1 foot forward, not two.
Well, he also, along with Dwayne Wade, owned a pickleball team, a professional pickleball team.
Yeah, do something with that, right? Retire
Play.
from the NBA and let's play pickleball. Let's see, the Pickleball Association, the PBA, whatever.
Right.
Like, give me the PBA.
I'm pretty sure they'd take his phone call.
100%. I would love to see that, right? So just all I'm saying is, like, if your focus isn't on basketball anymore, then do these other things, because that's why a lot of players, like, look at Ashley Barty. I'll just give you the most obscure example on the planet. She's younger than me, and she retired from tennis because she won everything on the planet and was like, I want to spend time with my child now.
Right.
I've done. I don't need to prove anything else. I'm like 20-something years old. I've won every major there is. I'm the best player in the planet in tennis. I want to go spend time with my 2-year-old or 3-year-old. Whatever.
And if she wants to play, later in life, if she decides, she can play doubles if she wants to. That's happened a number of times on the women's tour where, women have achieved what they felt was, good, and they wanted to hang out with the family for a while, and then that got tiresome, and they came back and they would play Wimbledon, and some of the other tournaments, either as a single or more often than not as a member of the doubles teams.
I'll tell you what, Jim. My mom is waiting for the day that happens. She is a huge Ashley Barty fan, and this is a woman who watched, all the greats, Sharapova. She tells me all the stories about, the stabbing in the back. Like, she was a huge tennis fan. She used to go to the, the ATP Toronto and the WTA Toronto when it would come to town, or whatever it was called back then. It might have been the Rogers Cup or something. But
the Rogers Cup.
Yeah. But she is waiting for the day. She, as someone who's seen Sharapova and all these, great, Steffi Graf, all these great women play, she thinks Ashley Barty is the best women's player to ever play the game. So
that's some high praise.
Yeah, it was just she watches a lot of tennis, and she talks a lot about the way Barty hit the ball. She could always just, like, no matter how hard it was towards her, she could always just soft lob it back somehow. And
right.
She had this way of where she could give herself enough time to get back into position, but also place it in a spot where, the other person would struggle to get. So she's just a very intelligent, fantastic player by far. Ashley Barty, if you're watching, we're waiting for the day you come out of retirement.
There you go. The Ashley Barty also had something in the tennis world, they call it soft hands. And all that really means is that she had the capability, and I assume still does, if she wanted to play, to, from the baseline, literally hit a drop shot, because her wrists were so good at, at deadening the ball on the racket. She could literally, instead of whacking it back, to play baseline, she could surprise you by stopping the ball with her wrist and just kind of flick, the ball over the net as a drop shot, which is that's when you can do that, players on the other side basically just they look back at you and go, okay, I can't do that. You're doing something here that humans are not supposed to do.
Yeah, and in a funny good way. In a funny way, it was a good thing she retired, because she was just unfair. It was like having a cheat code on the court, but absolutely, phenomenal player.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Speaking of phenomenal players, let's talk about what you got for the folks today.
Yeah, if you're looking to bet on some phenomenal players tonight, there's tons of games. Make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. Like I said, I'm coming off, the Champions League win with Man City -1.5 yesterday. I have 2 Champions League plays for 3 o'clock, which we mentioned early in the show. Make sure you go check that out. And I got a huge basketball card tonight. I got 5 college basketball plays, including my Horizon League Game of the Year. So go get that. I'm on a 8-2 run with 10-star plays for college basketball. So my last 10-star plays, 8 of them have cashed. So go check out the Horizon League Game of the Year. And I got one NBA play, which is my Western Conference Game of the Month. So make sure you go check that out as well. I'm on a 7-1 run for NBA 10-star picks in 2024.
There you go. And if y'all get a chance, tune in ESPNU tonight and check out our team, USF, taking on the folks from the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. They'll be playing that game at the easier for me to say. It's the name of the beer, Yangling. I can't pronounce the name of the beer company. It's Yingling, I guess. Center. So yes, USF and the Golden Hurricane of Tulsa tonight at the Yingling Center. Tip off 7 o'clock on ESPNU. So there you go. If you got a minute. So we got a lot coming up this weekend. A lot of stuff that's going to be a lot of fun to deal with, and we've got the NBA All-Star Weekend. We've got Daytona 500. And we've got plenty of other college basketball action as we get right in the midst of some pretty serious conference play. So you're going to want to be with us for the next couple of days because we're going to be having some fun talking about all of it. So any final thoughts there, big man?
As the great Rye Cape would say, it's cash and tickets.
There you go. Can't fault with that. All right, folks. See you tomorrow, 2 o'clock-ish, right here. Until then, for Amedeus, I'm Jim. Be well.